Her specialty is in podcast marketing and growth. She's a podcast marketing strategist who helps her local and international clients earn through podcasting. Her goal is to guide business owners build a sustainable and lucrative podcast through proven and effective strategies. Please welcome Kai Villanueva.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for that nice introduction. And actually, I'm really happy and glad to be speaking here with the podcast heroes. And yeah, I'll just make this very quick and maximize my 30 minutes. So I'll share my screen. Okay, there. All right. So I hope you can see my screen now. Okay, and yeah, by the way, I am Kai and I am from the Philippines, so I can definitely relate to James when he mentioned that he's finally presenting at his time zone because I am from the Philippines. And yeah, I'll be discussing essential steps to grow your show. So, the reason why I chose to discuss this or to share something about this is also based on my experience during my consultation call. So let me just tell you a quick story about my consultation calls. Whenever I have consultation calls with prospective clients, sometimes they're kind of confused with my question or whenever I ask them to describe their customer avatar. And I think this has already been discussed a while ago by Dave Jackson and some other speakers about how it's really important to craft your customer avatar or to find your target market, right? So this is what I usually encounter whenever I ask them this. Sometimes they're confused or it takes them a couple of minutes to respond. So the reason why I'm sharing you this is because I want to address those who are kind of frustrated, kind of exhausted, and they feel like uh, they are not gaining favorable results from their podcast. Going back to my quick story, sometimes they even tell me I want to target all of the people because I think my services is applicable to all, which is pitfall, right? So this is the reason, or this is one of the most my ask questions to my prospective clients, because this is where I usually get started, because I want to also find out where can we find or what kind of topics we can generate as their content for their podcast shows. Now, before we go further, let us have a quick preview of how many podcasts are there. Actually, James already discussed this a while ago of how many existing podcasts we have right now. So, based from Overlow, there are 850,000 active podcasts and over 30 million podcast episodes. So, if you can see here, we have 850,000 active podcasts, right? That's active podcasts. But the question is, how many do we think are available when it comes to the whole podcast now, right now? So based on podcast industry insights, again, James mentioned this a while ago, there are almost 2 million, right, podcasts and counting. That's 2.4. James mentioned that a while ago. So but if we're going to compare it, the active podcast shows that we have right now, it's just 800, right? It's just ranging from 850,000 active podcasts. So there are actually different reasons, and I collated some of them. And this based on my experience and my observation when I visit Facebook groups or talk to my prospective clients. And I collated some of the possible reasons here. Some of them, they don't have time, they don't have the resources, they don't know how to specifically, handle it properly because they're too busy handling their business, or they have, full-time job. And that's why it seems overwhelming for them, or they are talking to the wrong audience, which is why some of podcasters are struggling to promote their podcast. They publish and present or are present weekly, but the results are not in their favor. Also, maybe they are promoting in the wrong platform, and their customer avatar is not well defined. That's why their message is not well crafted as well. So again, these are all based on my experiences whenever I have consultation calls and also my observation. So which this would also lead to, pod fading, right? Steven actually mentioned something about pod fading a while ago, right? When he discussed about podcast editing. And going back to these reasons that I collated, these are also, some of the reasons why it's the bottlenecks of the podcasters, why they just choose to not continue with their episode, why they feel like it's too much for them to handle, right? That's why there are certain podcast shows that are, pod fading. Well, maybe some of the podcasts that exist are just, for a limited series, or not really exhausted, but they're just allotting certain episodes for them to begin with. But let's discuss what's the meaning of pod fade as well, for those who are not really familiar with this term. So, based on Podcast Hero, it is to generally it generally means that you stop your podcast all of a sudden and without notice, and it doesn't end intentionally or wasn't planned as a limited series, or you just run out of energy or don't want to do the work anymore and just stop producing episodes, which typically happens. Typically happens whenever I visit Facebook group. Some of the questions also, these also fall under these circumstances. Some are really, you know um questioning the capability of podcasts, if this really for their business, or if it would really help their brand build authority in the online space. Now, let's discuss some of the ways on how you can prevent yourself from falling into this pitfall. So, I prepared at least five actionable steps for you to begin with. So you can start maybe checking in your podcast, if you need to do some revamping or some updating when it comes to your content, your strategies and stuff. So, okay. First one is to craft your customer avatar, or just have a description of what your ideal clients would look like. It's really important because this is where you can get ideas that you should talk about in your podcast. All right. But let us first discuss. I know that you're familiar with what a customer avatar is, but in case that some are asking what it is, it's actually referred to as a buyer persona. It's the type of person you want to purchase your products or services, type of people you want to be a part of your community. These are the people you want to talk to. These are the people that have the problem that you want to solve. So those are your customer avatar. Okay. And now, for you to know what kind of behavior your customer avatar have, you should also take a look on their demographics and their psychographics. Now, Sharon and James actually discussed about demographics. That's for analytics. I don't want you to get confused. Well, with the demographics that I'm talking about right now, it's before, okay, before you create your content for your podcast, not after. So these are the ideas, or these are the aspects that you have to check in for you to create a podcast or content ideas that would resonate with your ideal clients. Okay, that the age range, the gender, the location, interest, the job, what they do for a living, the language. Now, the reason why you would want to deep dive into this is because different type of people, they have different behavior, right? Like, for example, when it comes to gender, if you were a health coach or a mindset coach who would like to focus on women, women have different behavior with men, right? With the age range, the millennials, right? Different generation have different approach when it comes to things, right? The location, we have different behavior, we have different beliefs and culture. With the interest, right? We have different interests. And with a job, I had a client before, and actually, my client would really want to serve people from the corporate world, from the corporate industry, specifically the high performing leaders. But what I noticed that she was doing wrong was she kind of missed on promoting on LinkedIn, where a lot of high performing leaders from the corporate industry belong, right? So that will also help you understand which platforms you would want to use in promoting your podcast to attract or to convert your followers into listeners, right? Now, when it comes to language, well, apparently, of course, if your listeners are in the English speaking countries, right, then you would want to use that. But it's not just about that. When it comes to language, and when we say speak their language, it doesn't just fall under that. It also talks about how what's the manner of their language, how they speak, because we have people who belong in the professional industry, right? So if you are serving that market, definitely you would also want to use the language that they use so they can resonate with you, and to prevent those words that would sound off to them, right? And next, now let's go to psychographics. Now, when it comes to psychographics, of course, it's definitely necessary that you know their pain points, wants, needs, and motivation, because this is where your content would revolve. Remember, you're solving a solution, right? Or you are there are three things. It's either you entertain, you educate, or you inspire. Or other than that is to educate in solving their problems, right? So if you are talking about different things that doesn't serve them well, then people wouldn't know what your purpose is, right? And since you are there to solve a specific problem, then you should definitely understand what their pain points are, because again, that's what you're going to address, and that's what you will exist for. Okay, their wants and needs, and how are they motivated, right? What makes them motivated, and that's how you will craft, or that's where you'll craft your content ideas from. All right. And okay, let me just give you a quick idea of what I see usually happens when a podcaster fails to craft these things. First is they assume that the podcast topics they discuss suit their audience well, when in fact they don't. I remember Dave Jackson also told this to us a while ago, that whenever you want to know the answer, you have to ask them directly. You don't have to, create that in mind, or in your own mind, that this is their problem and this is what they want. You have to do research. You have to ask them directly, right? Because if you're going to do a series of episodes, that's a lot of episodes, right? Especially if your episode lasts for an hour or more than that. That's going to be too much exhausting for you if you're creating contents that doesn't really sell well, or that doesn't serve your target market well, right? Next, if you're going to invite guests in your show, but you haven't crafted this very well, then this could, give a wrong perception to your audience, that the problem that they have is not the one that you're solving, because you're bringing in guests that are not offering the same thing as you, right? Um, Before, I was talking about this client a while ago. This client that I had before, well, he wanted to serve the people in the corporate world, right? The 9 to 5 people who belong in the high performing industry. Now, the another thing that I saw about that, I noticed, is that he's bringing in guests in the entrepreneurship industry, those guests that are good in business, but in fact he really wanted to talk to people in the corporate world. And that's what I was talking about. They have different behavior, right? They have different routine. So how would you resonate with the content if you know that they're doing different things, right? So that's another pitfall or mistake. And of course, if that's the case, they won't identify what your real purpose is, right? Remember, our goal is to build your authority through your podcast and to let them know what your purpose is, right? They want you to be their go-to person. But if your message is all over the place, if you're talking to different people, group of people, without building your tribe first, without building your fan base first, then this can cause you to this can be like this can lead to pod fading, right? And okay, so this is really important. I want to give emphasis on this because when it comes to promotion, we do repurposing of contents, right? And our episodes are our hero content, right? Meaning it's where we extract a lot of tidbits or valuable sound bites for promotion. We do that a lot. Right now, if your main source of content is not performing really well, or if it's not really resonating with your audience, so how can we expect our promotional materials to work? Right? So that's why this is a big factor for us to consider because it's like a domino effect, right? From the main source to the following sources. We want it to be effective, and we want it to be the solution to the daily problems of the target market. And next, all right. You have to identify what kind of business you want to do. Okay. You have to know how to position yourself. Like I mentioned a while ago, solving problems, right? Which category does it fall under? Okay. And to answer, or another question that you have to answer is, how do you want to be remembered? Because if you remember, when you sign up for the podcast hosting platform, we are usually asked for at least three categories or subcategories of our podcast, right? If it's in business, it's either you have to choose at least three: entrepreneurship, management, marketing, or anything else. And that's the same with others. Health, we have different kinds of health and fitness, alternative health, medicine, right? So you have to identify yourself as well as clearly as you can, because you want to be found in a place where your target market usually hang out, right? And then, okay, maybe you're asking, for those who are asking, how would I know their needs and their problems? How would I know that I am correct in thinking that, or in formulating that the service that I am providing is a solution to their problem? Well, you can do social media listening, and you can go to forums, do surveys, right? Ask them directly. Ask the people in your community about what they need, what their problem is, what's making them frustrated, what's making them exhausted when it comes to the service that you're offering or anything related to that, right? Go to Facebook groups where they usually hang out. Usually, the questions that they post there are already, or can give you already an idea of what their daily journey looks like, and if it's a problem for them or not, right? So there are a lot of resources that we can go through the internet in finding out what are the problems that we need to solve for our target market. You can post that in directly post that on your social media or on stories, right? Create a poll. There are different ways and how you can extract that, and that's where you can also generate content ideas that you will discuss in your podcast. All right. And next, crafting your offer. So when you craft your offer, or why do you have to craft your offer to make your podcast effective? Because you want your audience to remember you as someone who they need when a particular problem arises, right? So, what services are you selling, right? What products are you selling? What kind of packages do you have for them? The benefits, do you offer discount, right? After them hearing your podcast, or after them subscribing to your podcast, right? Do you do you sell a particular product that you talk about in your podcast? Do you offer a paid group, something like that? Because this will actually give you an idea of where you're going to bring them next. Okay. Right. And that's what we call the call to action. Okay. Identify what your goal is at the end of your episode, because this will help you identify what your call to action is. Like, for example, right, go to my Facebook group. So the question is it a free group or a paid group, right? This will also, if once that you identify also, or you gauge how warmed up your audience is, it would also give you an idea if they're ready for a free group or a paid group, or they need more nurturing through an email list. Now, if they're super ready, right, you can ask them directly about that. You can create a post in your group, right? If they're ready to sign up for a Patreon, then why not, right? For as long as they're warmed up, right? And also, if they're really or if you have already established trust and a relationship with them, maybe leading them to a sales page is the best way for you, right? And that's what you can add in the show notes, right? So because our listeners or the audience are just waiting for us to tell them what to do next. Sometimes because of the or overwhelming daily activities, and also the contents that they consume, not only your content, right? They suddenly forget what to do next, right? That's why it's really important for you to remind them at the end of the show and in your show notes what to do next, so you can eventually convert them into listeners to future buying clients, right? And okay, so promoting your podcast. Actually, this is one of the exhausting things that some podcasters, they find this really exhausting because of, for example, repurposing, right? And turning it into writing about that, written content, creating a blog post out of that. But this is really effective. Now, what or where can you promote? Okay. Okay, so where can you promote? A while ago I mentioned that identifying your target market's behavior will also help you identify which platform you promote, right? But basically, you can maximize your social media, your email list, your community, or you can directly tell your family and friends about what you do, right? So this in this manner, you're also creating awareness and letting them maximize the word of mouth that we call, once that they hear your podcast. It's really effective. Maybe this is for my friend has this problem, right? Then you're allowing them to share it with their friends through word of mouth. Now, for social media, I just want to circle back with choosing the right platform. Again, you would want to know the behavior of your target market, so you would know which platform suit them best, because different platforms, they have different purpose, right? If you compare LinkedIn versus Facebook, where LinkedIn is where you can find those in the corporate industry or career advancement, right? And it's different from the purpose of Instagram and TikTok. So which ones are most applicable to your brand and to your audience, right? And that's how you find out which ones to use. Now, for email list, this is where you can remind them that there is an upcoming episode as well, or even after, you can send an email blast. A community, you can just post if you have a Facebook group, right? Or a paid or free, you can also announce it there. You can announce it very creatively, so you won't sound too salesy. That's why we have different types of platforms that we can use, right? Okay, so for podcast promotion, yeah, it's basically, through social media, building presence and authority, so you can convert your followers to listeners. And then here are some examples of how we can promote it creatively through content repurposing. We have MP4 because right now we are, or the video podcast is really in trend, right? And it's really effective when it comes to promoting it. It's very interactive, so we can create, slice it into valuable sound bites, right? Put in a caption, right? Create caption for it, and very appealing frames, and then audiogram. We can definitely create audiograms out of that, and written content. If you transcribe your podcast into, or if you transcribe it, you can simply, extract very valuable written content, or even blog posts, right? Quotable quotes that would help you get the attention of your audience, and eventually from social media you can drive them to your podcast or streaming platforms. Now, let me just give you a fun trivia. Okay, not all people know what they need and when they need it, and that's where you come in. That's why we are promoting across different social media platforms, because even, let's say, for example, your closest friend or the person who you talk to on social media doesn't, sometimes they don't even know what you do, right? That's why we are optimizing our profiles. That's why we are creating contents, very valuable contents, to slowly educate them who you are and why you exist, right? Because sometimes they don't know what you do. What if they have the problem that you're solving, right? And sometimes they don't even know that that problem exists until they read something about it. They don't know that they need it now until they read something about it or watch something about it. That's where you come in. All right. And yeah, if you have any questions, that's just my presentation. If you have any questions, then you can talk to us, reach out to us, or yeah, go, let's talk in the hop in platform for further questions. That's just it.